special displays at Longwood, and here we're looking at the Sagetsu display. Sagetsu is a school of bonsai ikebana, and they crafted this incredible bamboo sculpture. We had more than 400 pieces of timber bamboo. You guys have that in your backyard probably. Well, if you split that, wire it together, you can actually weave these incredible forms. So we crafted this thing with 10 Japanese artists. It took us about a week to make it happen. It was on display for only 1 month. So these are the types of things that are super special, and we want to encourage people to come back and see. We are approaching this time of year with hydrangea baskets, beautiful blues, and those wonderful spikes of echium on our exhibition hall floor. That's the original marble floor, dating back from the 1920s. Those towering tree ferns last about 10 years before they hit the roof, and they have to be changed out as well. So there really isn't anything permanent in this garden, except for perhaps the bougainvillea growing up the sides, which that bougainvillea is 100 years old. We do have an orchid extravaganza, and these orchids, Phalaenopsis, everyone knows what they are. But when you look at the ones on the right-hand side, these are special ones that we brought in from Taiwan, each flower as big as my hand. And there are 10 of those flowers in a truss. So once you do the math, those are about 4 feet long. They are pretty amazing. And of course, the hanging baskets on the left have about 100 Phalaenopsis in each one, and those orbs stretch well over 6 feet. That happens during our winter season, January through March. Our busiest time of year, that's of course December, the coldest and darkest time of the year, when more than 500,000 people visit Longwood Gardens during our 45-day Christmas display. Why do they come? I say to see the horticulture. Others say to see the lights. On the left-hand side, you can see fragrant oriental lilies blooming in November and December, of course, forced out of season. The little white flower underneath it, a euphorbia leucocephala, one I found in Mexico 25 years ago, and a plant that we took back to Longwood, and it's now become a staple of our winter season. On the right-hand side, those white hydrangeas. Not very often you see hydrangeas blooming in the dead of winter. We, of course, have forced those. The red berries, our native winterberry holly, and behind that, poinsettia trees. So regular cut Christmas trees with a metal frame inside them that then holds the living plant. So those were crafted by our metal craftsmen at Longwood, and that really has become a staple of our Christmas display as well. But as John says, in my heart, I am a plantsman. I love seeing plants, collecting plants, and doing something with them. This is our East Conservatory with the beautiful orange Euphorbia fulgens with purple foliage, variegated bromeliads, and those tall yellow plants, Rolldana petacitus, leaves that look like petacetes. And these plants I saw at the San Francisco Botanic Garden blooming in January. I said, if this can bloom in San Francisco, this can bloom in my conservatory. Unfortunately, I had a Ziploc bag in my pocket with a moistened paper towel. And of course, I was prepared for this, having asked the curator if we could have cuttings. But a single cutting comes back to Longwood. And within 2 years, we are then be able to create these types of displays each and every year. Keep in mind the flowers you're looking at, those are annuals. They're not even lasting a full season. The yellow flowers last 1 month, the orange flowers last 2 months, and the bromeliads last about 3 months before we move them around somewhere else. So guaranteed each time you come, you'll see something totally different. During our Chrysanthemum Festival in the East Conservatory, that's when our 1,000 bloom mum comes into flower. We have one person fully employed to grow one plant. No pressure. That is one single stem producing over 1,500 flowers. There is only one type of chrysanthemum that we got from Japan that will grow this way, and it looks like, again, Medusa throughout the summer season. And then about 3 weeks before flowering, we train each flower onto this frame. If we were in Japan, the frame would be made out of bamboo, but here in the States, we are a little more ingenious and use fishing rods, those carbide rods that bend so easily, and then we can train all of our flowers around that. And this blooms for all of 3 weeks. Again, the last few weeks in October, first few weeks in November. Longwood Gardens is not a botanical garden. We are a display garden. We are a place that displays beautiful plants, whether it be 1 or 500 of the same thing. We also are a curating collection of garden designs. On the left-hand side, our former Mediterranean garden designed by Ron Lutzko of Northern California. This garden is no longer here. We have transitioned this space into our new West Conservatory, which was inspired by this plant palette. Most people are visiting the conservatory in the winter, so we've chosen plants that bloom in the winter season. So this small thing, perhaps you could imagine the size of your cell phone. We have now expanded the new garden to the size of this full screen. So our new West Conservatory is 32,000 square feet of amazing Mediterranean flora in full bloom in the winter season. People love the history of Longwood, and the acacia passage is more than 100 years old. Acacia leprosa on the left-hand side, a tree that we've not been able to find anywhere else. We've shared with so many people, and they too have a difficult time growing it. So we are one of the few places you are going to see these incredible trees blooming the month of February only. Once they finish flowering, the trees are cut back pretty much to bare stems, as you see on the right-hand side, and then we add beautiful hanging baskets. In this situation, Medinilla baskets for the May and June season, transitioning to begonias, caladiums, streptocarpus as the season goes on. Our garden path is a place that we can utilize unusual plants because it is a small garden, almost like your home garden, but it is perpetually in flower. There is not a day of the year that it doesn't look like springtime in that garden. The beds are small, the shrubs are average size, small trees, but we have things like begonias that grow 8 feet tall. So what you might have as a houseplant, we're having as a landscape shrub. Perhaps you'll have ground covers that you might have one pot of, and then we've added them by the hundreds. And on the right-hand side, a beautiful gesneriad called Gloxamania she's dancing. And this is proof in the pudding that each person in the world has access to amazing plants and can create and influence what gardens are going to be, as this plant was bred by a hobbyist in the Midwestern United States who doesn't even have a greenhouse. She only has grow lights in her basement. I saw a picture of this on social media. She shared one small plant with us, and we then propagated it to the hundreds and then shared it with the world. So if you have a passion that is small, it can be expanded by sharing your passion with the right people. And Longwood is a place that loves to share those types of plant passions. I do love exotic color combinations. On the left-hand side, Salpiglossis. This is a petunia relative, but it's one of those petunias more closely related to Goldilocks. Not too much sun, not too much shade, not too much water, not too dry, not too cold, not too hot, and we don't like wind. So that kind of narrows down how it can be grown. So we're very lucky to have that narrow band of conditions it actually wants, and you can see those flowering in May in the conservatory. And on the right-hand side, Aphelandra sinclairiana, a plant I saw years ago only because our designer doesn't like pink and orange. So here's a word of caution. Do not tell people what you don't like, because when you do, you will be surrounded by more of it. So it's an encouragement to be positive and share what you love and share all those things that make you happy. And then hopefully people will surround you with those things. Our children in the children's garden love to get wet. We have water features galore. It's a great place for us to put in unusual small plants that perhaps aren't big enough to go in the rest of the garden. And of course, if all of that color and all of that excitement is a little too much, maybe you need to have a seat. Well, we have a great place for you to sit. It's our green wall. There are 18 individual restrooms in there. So we won America's best restroom. So it is the place that you are going to have every person visit at Longwood Gardens, and we're proud to show it off. But even more than that, Longwood was just voted one of the best gardens in the United States, maybe the world. We hold that honor in high regard. We want your visit to Longwood, whether it be your first or your 100th, to be as amazing as it can possibly be. So from all the people that work at Longwood, I encourage you to come back, and I look forward to seeing you in the gardens next time. But many people often ask, what do I do at Longwood, being the conservatory manager? And you can see over there on the left, I'm just mocking up a Christmas display. So we do Christmas in the middle of summer, making sure it looks right, making sure the colors and the scale are going to be good. And then after the Christmas display, tearing all of those things out. So I am working in the conservatory on limited occasions. I'm choosing plants, finding unusual plants that we can choose and partner together. And we are adding those things to the conservatory on a daily basis, whether you like purples and oranges, whites, yellows, pinks. We are going to have all of those in the conservatory complex each and every day of the year. I do work with our professional horticulture training program, and we have 10 students per year coming through for a 2-year training, hands-on, learning from the gardeners, and then matching that with wonderful academic studies as well. If you know a young person who is interested in horticulture, direct them to Longwood, as this is an all-expense paid learning experience. And of course, you graduate with more contacts than you could even imagine, guaranteeing a full-time position in the horticultural world. And I've been very happy to work with students who've literally moved around the world. And the truth is, there is nowhere I can go in the world, in a garden, that I will not probably see someone that has not been to Longwood, visited, learned. Longwood is such a hub for horticulture around the world. Some of the special exhibits we've done outdoors, Bruce Monroe was one of the first exhibits he conducted in the United States. That is 10,000 LED spheres on our forest walk on the upper left. On the right-hand side, those are plastic soda bottles filled with filaments and lit up in our meadow. And then on the lower right, more of those incredible spheres. So it takes a lot of hands to make incredible displays like this work, and I've been very fortunate to be a part of those. Other special displays include our fruit and floral weekend, a corn chandelier, tomato towers, and an artichoke arch. Celebrate the season with an 800-pound pumpkin carved into a beautiful floral motif. And of course, inviting local floral artists to create floral designs out of things harvested from the gardens. We had a glass pumpkin display several years ago, and these pumpkins were organically blown in California. And they come in a range of colors from the Cone Stone studio. So we created a giant cornucopia, 13 feet long, completely by hand. So Longwood is a place that allows us to be creative in each and every avenue, whether it be with horticulture, art, cut flowers. It all takes a great team to make it happen. And I'm so lucky to have a great team of 5 full-time staff, 5 part-time staff, 5 students, and 50 volunteers just in the conservatory. So each of those hands coming together, really creating something that's truly magical. But when you go back in time and you think about where I came from, John mentioned I did grow up on a cotton farm. I thought everyone grew up on a 10,000-acre cotton farm. And it wasn't until I left there that I realized that it's a little different out there in the world. I went to Walt Disney World in Florida. I met people from around the world. I came to Longwood for an internship and went to California. But the thread that's been consistent in my career is my passion for really colored foliage. And that dark purple leaf you see up there, this dates back to 1991 when I was growing the blackleaf cotton in my Mississippi garden, finding plants that tolerate the heat and humidity of that zone 8 climate. And I really have a passion for sharing that color with each and every person. I have been to a few gardens around the world, and everywhere I go, I find something inspiring. Your home, your garden has something inspiring. That flower pot on your front porch may be all the inspiration I need to create a new display at Longwood. 3 plants in your pot, 300 plants at Longwood, it's still going to be an amazing inspiration. So do things, share those things with other people, invite people to see your gardens and your work, and you never know what will come from that. So as we jump into what we're actually here to talk about, plants that pop, it's not just flowers, it's foliage as well. How about a little bit of Merlot? I probably should have a little Merlot in this thing this morning. But I love red flowers. I love red foliage. You might not be able to tell from my personality, but these are exciting things. And for me, gardens are exciting. If you want to have something quiet and relaxing, that's what an art museum is, because I walk in there and I fall asleep. I'll just nod off in the corner. But in the garden, I can stay up until you're wearing headlamps, because I'm out there seeing these plants until the wee hours of the morning. But we're going to share a few plants that I am so passionate about, a few plants I've had a chance to grow. Keep in mind, I am not a snooty plant collector, and there's nothing wrong with those people. I'm not about finding plants, or shall I say, giving you ideas that you can't find. What's the sense in showing you something if you can't eventually get it yourself? But I do want you to have to work for it, because everything in life that's worth having means you need to put a little effort into it. So I hope these are not plants that are available at the local Home Depot. I hope you have to visit some independent garden centers or some plants people to find them. But with the wealth of Japanese maples that are out there, and you guys are so blessed here in North Carolina to have Mr. Maple just to the west of us here, but amazing selection, hundreds of maples. Which one do I choose? And you've probably had that same challenge, but I love the cultivar Ever Red. It really does have a nice lacy foliage, airy texture. You can grow things underneath it, and of course you can paint your Japanese bridge to match the foliage. But really, any of those red foliage maples are going to be fantastic. They're oftentimes going to fade a little bit in the summer heat. So by choosing the right cultivar, you can find one that's vibrant and will give you that red, exciting color throughout most of the season. And again, I'm not a plant snob. I love weeds. I was telling someone the other day, I love North Carolina this time of year because you've got all this wisteria blooming. Did you guys plant this on the sides of the road? I mean, it's just amazing. So even plants that are weeds can be beautiful. And sometimes I'm hesitant to share my passion for albizia, but my grandmother had one of these in her garden in Mississippi, and it's a trash tree, and it drops twigs and leaves, but those little pink puffballs, the fragrance in summer, the light textured foliage, I just love everything about it. And I think I was visiting the J.C. Ralston 20 plus years ago, and Todd Lassane showed me this thing, and I was just like, done. It's like first love. You know, once you get your first love, you don't forget. You learn bad things about your first love, but you still keep them in your life. You know, eventually you have to move your first love out of your house, but you still remember them with fondness. And that's kind of like me with albizia. I know it's bad. I know it jumps around, but I just love this foliage. And remember, with every first love, there's always a better one. And here Ted Stevens has introduced Merlot Magic. So your first love had dark foliage, but Merlot Magic has red foliage that lasts all summer long. So anyone who's been married more than once knows that you can find love again. And Merlot Magic is definitely my second love, reminding me of my first. How about barberries? You know, we're not supposed to like barberries either. I would never suggest barberries in New England. Barberries are absolutely horrible invasive plants in northern New England. But down here, I don't think they're nearly as bad. And where I photographed this in New Zealand, Alan Trott taught me something really valuable about plants and how to use them. First of all, he had a red garden. So I said, yes, I'm listening now. But he said, in your garden, you can do anything you want. And I said, yeah, understand that. But then he finished it by saying, if you put a hedge around it. So I think what he was explaining was you can have the most chaotic looking garden, but as long as you put a hedge around it, as long as you put a belt on, you are just fine. It's that accessory that every garden needs to just tie it together and unify it. So with that, I remember you need a hedge, you need a belt, but let's make it special. Let's choose one that does something a little more interestingly. You can walk up to it and you can appreciate the details. You can think about the fairies that were hand painting those gold edges on those leaves. You can get the grandchildren, take them out there and be like, now you guys start painting some edges on these leaves. That'll keep them busy for a while. So I love plants that have detail that really slow me down, while additionally they add absolute beauty overall to the entire garden. And how about cotinus? The beautiful smoke bushes with that gorgeous red foliage. I love the hydrophobic effect of the leaves. I never knew that smoke bushes smoked because I always chop mine flat to the ground every year. And with the heat and moisture we have here on the East Coast, they will spring back up almost 3 or 4 feet. And then I use those perfectly straight stems in the fall to cut off and mark where my peonies are so I don't go digging through them when I'm planting more perennials in my garden. So whether you like the smoke on smoke bush, let them grow up and get bigger, or the joy is you can cut them down, because either way, you're going to have that incredible fall color that follows with them. So with so many plants these days, it's not good enough for them just to flower or just to be eaten or just to have a fragrance. They need to do something else. Multiple season interest. So this one gives us that beautiful summer foliage and fall color to boot. Galicia ruby lace was one of the first trees I fell in love with. You're looking at this and you're like, where's the tree? But on the left-hand side, that thing is coppiced flat to the ground every 3 to 5 years. So just because it's a tree does not mean it needs to grow to tree-like proportions. John was showing me that in the gardens, whereas these beautiful eastern red cedars were probably meant to be a hedge or a screen. They were not meant to be 50 feet tall. So in your garden, you can keep trees a little bit smaller if you choose the right ones with colored foliage and coppice them to bring that foliage down to you. If you do happen to let ruby lace grow up, it does get to be about 20-ish feet tall. It does have that chocolatey red foliage in the summer, and then of course it turns a beautiful yellow in the autumn. And the great thing about that foliage, you don't have to rake it. The leaflets are so tiny, they just blow around, and inevitably they will always blow to your neighbor's garden. So that's how leaves work. When you guys are down here in this warm southern climate, you guys have lots of alyssium, beautiful anise flowered or licorice scented shrubs. So many to choose from these days, but this cultivar deep purple gives me that red foliage I love in the garden. The new growth, of course, is nice and dark. It fades to green in the summer, but again, it gives you that little flash in the springtime, which I love. It is an evergreen. It's somewhat loose and airy, so it allows a little bit of light to penetrate through there. So be on the lookout for Alyssium deep purple. One of the Pennsylvania Horticulture Society's top trees was Nyssa cultivar Wildfire. And I saw this several years ago when I was visiting an arboretum in Ohio in the summertime. Now, summertime gets to be a little boring in my garden, so I'm always looking for something that's interesting and exciting. So from a distance, I saw a tree which looked like it was flowering. And I'm like, what is blooming in Ohio in the summertime? And as I got closer, I saw the new growth was this incredible shade of red. And I was then reminded that flowers are fleeting, but foliage is forever. And that foliage will bloom, will have color all season long. As long as it's growing and producing new growth, you'll have that bright red flash on the tip of this relatively small tree. We know Nyssa as the black tupelo growing in swampy areas, but likewise, it will grow in evenly moist, well-drained soil as well. So give our native Nyssas a try. They not only have glorious red fall color, but this cultivar Wildfire gives you that red throughout the summer season as well. Osmanthus are so wonderful here in North Carolina for their autumn flowering. Heterophilus has so many cultivars these days. Purpurea, one of my favorites, giving us that dark purplish cast in the springtime. I love it. It can be hedged, but I might have to change my favorite to the one on the right called Party Lights, because that one does have hot pink new growth. It's a little more exciting than I'm used to. Oh, I'm kidding there. But this thing, incredible in the spring, fading to green. But again, it gives you that flash of excitement in the spring, which so many of our traditional osmanthus just flower. And interestingly, we were okay with that 30 years ago, but now we want a little bit extra. And we're starting to get colored foliage variants on almost everything. So I encourage you to check out all these osmanthus, but keep a few of the oldies like purpurea in your garden just to have a little something interesting, different, because we all love to show off a little something different that our neighbors don't have. And then I do throw in a non-hardy plant, cordyline or cordellini. Fortunately, Latin is not a spoken language, it's a written language, so there's no wrong way to pronounce plant names, but these cordellini are great accents for your summer containers. I don't think they make great houseplants, so just use them as annuals. Your growing season's much longer than ours in Pennsylvania, but we use them throughout the season. This is Chrysanthemum Festival. We'll use them in the springtime. They can add a punch of color into your landscape, and you can just plant them as large annuals in your perennial beds to give you more color than I think most other plants will give you. Cordellini come in so many different colors, from yellows to pinks, magenta, even black. So it really is a dramatic plant just to give you that little accent. Again, we're not putting huge beds of it out there, just adding to your landscape. As we move into something a little more subtle and calming, this is Longwood's Silver Garden. This was designed by Isabel Green of Southern California. Has a wonderful metaphorical story with the agave attenuata on the left being bubbles, the cactus in the back being trees, the ground covers of coprosma being the foam on the side of the river. So when you're touring this garden, especially after a few glasses of wine, it all starts to make sense. But the silver garden is full of incredible textures and shades of silver. So we'll look at a few that do well outdoors for us as well. So I was down in Columbia, South Carolina at riverbanks, and they have these beautiful banks of Serenoa. And there's a cultivar or a selection that has silver foliage, and I just thought that texture was absolutely magical. You guys also have a Mediterranean fan palm, the Chamaerops, which has a silver form. It's one of the hardier palms. Each of these will, of course, have to be sited in the correct spot. But as we know, everything worth having is worth working for, because I love the palmettos that I see growing naturally in the woods and in some people's gardens. Those textures are mind-boggling. And imagine if you were to get a silver form of that to really make it pop in your garden. I think it would be an absolute dynamic addition to any landscape. You guys certainly know the Cupressus arizonica, the Arizona cypress. You guys have, was it Carolina sapphire, nice little soft weeping one, but I love blue ice. I've been growing this one for a number of years, even up in Pennsylvania. I planted my entire outdoor garden to have plants I could harvest in the winter and make things like wreaths and topiaries out of. And this Cupressus makes the most fantastic greenery to bring inside, because once it dries to the exact same color and the exact same shape. It's not prickly, and it has an incredible fragrance. The only downfall, in my opinion, is it grows so fast. So you have to keep pruning it back. So in my garden, I keep it out there for 5, 10 years. It gets too big. I chop it to the ground, harvest all of those tips, make tons of wreaths for friends and family, and then replant a smaller plant in its place to allow it to keep growing back up. So think about in your vase of flowers, you're changing the vase out once a week. Think about your annual beds. You're changing those out once a year. So maybe in your landscape, you've chosen a few trees and shrubs you change out every 3 to 5 years. That's perfectly fine for things not to last forever. I do love Fothergilla, blue shadow. One of my coworkers calls it Fothergilla, and that's perfectly fine. Makes me smile. I'm like, can you just say that one more time? Was that Fothergilla? Oh, yeah. So I do love this plant because it does give us this beautiful silvery cast in the spring and summer, glowing in a partially shaded environment. Of course, the flowers coming on this time of year, those beautiful white puffballs. And then in the autumn, it is one of the most fiery shrubs that you can have. So talk about multi-season interest, from cool, calm, collected in the summertime to I am a crazy shrub in your backyard in the fall. I think I love a little bipolar, foliage in my garden. Gives you the best of everything. So Fothergilla, amazing. Aspidistra, even more amazing. I grew these as a child in Mississippi, but I had no idea there were cultivars that had this incredible variegation. When I saw cultivar snowcap at Plant Delights several years ago, I was just like, we're done. This is it. I've found my ultimate Aspidistra, glowing in a dark corner, thriving in dry conditions, lasting for weeks in a vase. My previous favorite on the left was Asahi, gorgeous little Japanese cultivar. It looks like it's airbrushed. And that one I would say is very sophisticated, like the Episcopalians. But on the right-hand side, we have a little too much blush, a little too much rouge. I grew up Southern Baptist, so our makeup wasn't quite as delicate as the Episcopalians. But I do love that one on the right, just because it's so loud. It's so much more of everything I want. And of course, you can imagine my favorite Oreos would be the double stuffed ones. So this one is absolutely double the good stuff. We're seeing a lot of Fatsia spiderweb these days, and some people roll their eyes at like that old thing. Well, fortunately, I love a plant that's on sale. I love a plant that's overproduced. I love a plant that's on clearance. And I said, I will find a place to use that in my garden. And this one I just can't get enough of, because that light foliage, that chartreuse look, it just lightens up those dark woodland areas. And of course, the foliage is great in flower arrangements. And the flowers and the fruits, I think, are equally interesting as well. To all those people who say, well, that plant looks like it's sick. That plant looks like it's got spider mites. To them, I say, there's the door. So this, I love all my neighbors, but this is an amazing plant. Let's stop and appreciate the beauty. Whenever I hear people say something, negative about these plants, I'm like, now you just come sit closer to me. Now we're going to talk about this. We're going to look at it. We're going to appreciate it. I might not change your mind, but you're definitely going to hear my side of it before we walk out of here. But I do love plants with interesting foliage textures because, again, you stop, you admire, you appreciate the delicate beauty that's put into it. So we were growing Cupressus cashmerania for years at Longwood as a little annual in our springtime displays. But when I saw a 15, 20 footer at the J.C. Ralston Arboretum several years ago, I was blown away that you guys could grow it down here. And then, of course, the big freeze came through and knocked it down. So you don't even have to worry about choosing when you're going to take those trees out. Mother Nature will do it for you. And that is, again, perfectly fine. Wouldn't you want to enjoy this for 3, 5, 8 years? It doesn't have to last for 10, 20, or 50. I would start that plant up the next year. Blue foliage hanging straight down, soft, incredible in a flower arrangement. People would absolutely ask, where did you get that? And of course, she'd be like, from my own backyard. So in the conservatory at Longwood on the right, you can see how big it can get when it doesn't get frozen to the ground. But ours did touch the roof and had to be taken out as well. And that's, again, perfectly fine. Gardens will change. Large trees will come down, and that then becomes an opportunity for that shade garden to then grow more sunny plants. We know it's going to happen. We need to embrace it. And I think change is something that's a challenge for all of us, but it will come. So we might as well start practicing loving the change. How about Philodendron? A great little house plant, I thought, for years. This is one of our 100+ hanging baskets at Longwood. This one's only about 8 or 9 feet across, so it's not our biggest one. But when I was at the J.C. Ralston several years ago, upper left-hand side, the plant was winter hardy for you guys. So that might have been a mild winter, but either way, I said, that's good enough for me. And I also love it when plants start to make sense. Notice the name of this plant, Philodendron aureum. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, excuse me, where's the aureum in this plant? Aureum is Latin for gold or yellow. And it wasn't until the plant got older and I saw the reproductive structures on the right, how they are golden, that it just was like, oh my gosh, I've been growing this plant for years. Now it finally makes sense. So all those plants you've been growing for years that you're wondering, why is it special? Maybe you just need to have a new lens. Maybe you need to have a different person sharing a story about that plant with you, and then you can appreciate it that much more. I cannot do without Yucca rostrata, and fortunately, it seems that most people down here feel the same way. This is a fantastic plant, which has soft-ish foliage. It gives a dynamic texture, and it is so adaptable, growing all the way down into North Florida, all the way up into Long Island. Everywhere I see this plant, it really adds an incredible texture to the garden. And when it gets too big, like on the right-hand side, there's always going to be a plant person that's willing to come over and dig it up from your garden. And you can then start a new one and just keep it small. These plants are so popular. They're so well loved. I just love the cousin it feeling that they give in the garden. You just want to walk by and rub their heads a little bit. Then you just want to measure them every couple of years as they keep growing up. But I think Yucca rostrata, especially the new cultivars that are a little more bluish, can't be used too much in the garden. And then we move on to gold foliage. This is the private garden of Barbara Robinson up in Connecticut. She calls her garden Brush Hill, and her garden is shared through the Garden Conservancy each and every year. So if you're not a member of the Garden Conservancy, I encourage you to check out gardenconservancy.org, a great organization opening up private gardens across the United States with so many up into the New York and Connecticut areas. I plan my weekends around when these gardens are open and make a trip up to see them, because you are surrounded by a different climate, different plants, different challenges, and you can't have any responsibility for it. You're merely enjoying it. So I love visiting other people's gardens. And I think the most I ever visited in one year was 145 days in someone else's garden. I love my garden, don't get me wrong, but I have weeds, I have insects, I have pruning, but when I'm in your garden, I'm just enjoying it. So I really appreciate other people sharing their gardens. One of my favorite trees, and in fact, the first tree I planted in my garden was a red maple. But this is a red maple with golden foliage. I drove 5 hours to pick up this plant, and that was just a drop in the bucket, because Shocking Gold, named after a fellow whose last name was that, has beautiful gold foliage in the springtime and still gets lovely fall color as well. Perhaps it's not the reddest fall color of any red maple, but I know of no red maples that have chartreuse foliage in the spring. So my garden has a woodland behind it, and this plant is literally glowing in the springtime when it leaves out. It goes green in the summer, and then it gives me fall color as well. Cannot have enough chartreuse foliage. How about big leaves on things like catalpa? Some people will turn their nose up at catalpa. They get big, they're trashy, they're weak-wooded. Well, it's because you're letting it become a tree. This plant does not want to be a tree. It wants to be a shrub that you cut back to the ground every 2 years. And then you allow it to regrow. You have this glorious golden foliage. And then you have sticks that you can use to stake up your plants every other winter. But think about these trees as a coppice plant in your landscape where you can have a 3 or 4 foot shrub. I can think of nothing else that has leaves as big as your hand that are that bright gold in the springtime. Summer gets a little tattered, but you live for springtime. It's the season of growth. And of course, our native hydrangea quercifolia. Little honey has that beautiful golden foliage, beautiful white flowers, glows in a shady situation. And when you mix it with other plants, it's just an accent. Can you imagine plain green with that? It would just disappear. But you need that chartreuse foliage to accent your flowers and your other foliages just to give a gorgeous composition, almost like a floral design. You're going to have colors and textures and forms all working together. And in your landscape, you want to think the same thing. Large leaves, small leaves, light colored leaves, dark colored leaves, they all mix together to make it something magical. Perhaps the most expensive plant I ever bought was Metasequoia ogon. You guys remember the white flower? No, it's the Wayside Gardens catalog. So as a 20-year-old, the Wayside Gardens catalog, pretty much every plant was half my paycheck. So I saved up all my lunch money, and I bought one of these trees, and it arrived, and it was nothing more than a 2-foot tall stick. But I spent all my money on it, so I grew it. Now it's 35 feet tall, the most glorious fluffy golden foliage against my green woodland, which turns a glorious tawny cinnamon color in the fall. All my neighbors are like, what is that plant? Well, these days, ogon has kind of been replaced with a cultivar called Soulfire, that Andy Schenk up in Pennsylvania found, which is a golden form, but it has red tips. So it's, it's like a cupcake is good enough until you have a cupcake with icing. And then that was good enough until you cupcake with, some sprinkles on top. And then that was good enough until you have a cupcake with some filling on the inside. So every year there's something that gets better and better about these plants. But Metasequoia is a phenomenal plant. I love I call it the skyscraper effect. You can see it on the horizon. And whenever you see a Metasequoia in someone's landscape, you know there's a plant person that lived there or lives there now. This is one of the sure signs of plant passion. And then we move into my guilty pleasure, variegation. So I do not consider myself a designer per se, because if I were a designer, I would be wearing a striped shirt and polka dot pants. I would be wearing something like orange and pink, even though I'm probably doing that in this shirt. But I love this combination when you've got 3 types of variegations together. That just begs your neighbors to say, that's just not right. And when someone says that, then you're doing good. If someone stops, if they make a comment, then you have achieved something. If they walk by and don't say anything, you're like, dang it, what's wrong with my garden? They didn't stop. But this was at Chanticleer, and I would have never thought to put all this variegation together, but it's just proof right there. You can do whatever you want in your garden. Be passionate, be creative, and again, share that with people. Some of my favorite variegated plants, a very small growing Aurelia. This plant is super, unusual, slow growing, expensive. That's probably why it's, everyone's favorite. Small tree, red flowers, black fruit. I mean, what else would you want about this? On the back left-hand side, you can see it's just growing well in Oregon. On the right-hand side, get some nice fall color. But this plant, when you buy it, it's going to be expensive. It's going to be kind of gangly and awkward. It's like a 14-year-old. And it's just like, oh, you'll eventually get better. But don't give up on it. Whenever you see one of these for sale, it is absolutely worth picking up and trying it out in your garden. And then arundo, this is probably something I should have pulled for you guys in North Carolina, as arundo can be a little aggressive in warmer climates. This happens to be up in Long Island. You guys might want to choose the selection called peppermint stick, which supposedly stays a little bit smaller. But the great thing about this, it grows fast. It gets big. So it gives you some immediate texture and color in your landscape. And of course, I love that bright white if you're trying to create a white garden or if you're contrasting it with darker foliage. And the truth is, if it gets too big, you can chop it back in the middle of the summer. You don't have to wait for the fall season. You can thin it out. You can use it in large outdoor flower arrangements. I just love having a plant that's adaptable and you can do so many things with. And then, of course, we think about betula, which is our native, what are these things? Birches. And this one you think, oh, I don't need another tree in my landscape. Well, fortunately, Mother Nature listened to you. And she says, this doesn't grow very well as a tree. This grows as a very awkward looking shrub. And it throws out the occasional green branch. But I'd say to all of that, I don't care, because on the right-hand side, I literally could just look at those leaves for days and just imagine how the white fades to light green. And then there's a little bit of dark green. And then that's completely different on the leaf underneath it and different yet from the leaf on the other side. So there are very few things in life that slow me down except for variegated foliage. And I can truly look at that and I can feel a sense of calm. And koi, I can look at koi and I can feel a sense of calm. But if you're an excitable person, maybe you need to have some more variegated foliage in your garden. It's good for your health. So clerodendron, this is a plant that people might be like, whoa, wait a minute. I have one of these in my yard. Gets really big, reseeds, sends up some suckers everywhere. So any plant that grows too fast or grows too big, it probably isn't variegated. So you need a variegated selection of these guilty pleasure plants. So why do I love Clerodendron trichotomum? It's because of those incredibly fragrant flowers that happen in the fall. In September, when you want to go back outside and you smell the scent of springtime, I close my eyes and I'm like, oh my God, it smells like spring, even though I'm still sweating. But that variegated foliage is, I think, an amazing accent to this late summer, early fall blooming suckering shrub, which does require some work. But I absolutely cannot say enough good things about our little clerodendron. And you guys are so lucky to have milder winters down here. You can grow turnstromia outdoors. There's some new variegated selections that are being more commercially produced. And what I love about this shrub is the fact it's great in a vase. If you need a filler to put your other flowers through to hold them up, this is going to last for much longer than any of your cut flowers. As it gets colder, the new growth is going to turn kind of purplish, which is perfect for the winter season. And then that purple flushes away, making lush, light spring growth as well. So turnstromia is a great evergreen, reflective leaf, easily pruned down to a hedge. And then again, this is the entire series of guilty pleasure plants. So I love Ilex cornuta, the Chinese holly. And you're like, why would you want that sticker bush? Well, because we had them in front of my church as a child. And as a little 10-year-old boy, what do? You pluck leaves off the sticker bush and you go poke all of the churchgoers. And people would kind of jump and they'd smile initially, but they wanted to rip your head off. But I'm like, you just got out of church. You can't do that today. So I, to this day, love Chinese holly. And I love to pluck a leaf off and just, poke someone and smile at them a little bit. I'm not 10 years old anymore, so it's probably not as charming as it was. But O-Spring is a great variegated selection. Each leaf, glorious, chartreuse, butter, yellow. I just love everything about this. I mean, I hope that you're hearing it. But if you're not growing this Chinese holly, it's the only Chinese holly I would grow. Again, contrast with the dark greens behind it. Easier to keep small because it's growing, slower than the rest. And then how about some akubas? You guys have so many akubas. Look at this wonderful one. I think this was from Tom Rainey over in Western North Carolina. Glorious selection, bright white, new growth on this one. Fades a little bit to green. So if you have green akubas in your landscape, I think your compost bin needs an addition to it. So make room for some of these great selections that have been brought to us from the great plant hunters that have traveled across the seas and sometimes smuggled these things into our nation, but we're better for it. We've got incredible new selections now that literally are like nothing we have seen before. Going back to osmanthus, this wonderful white new growth on Akabono is one of my favorites, even growing all the way up north in zone 7. Look at that new growth, almost tinged pink. And then it's white, and then it fades to green. So this time of year, you look out in the distance and you're like, what is this plant blooming? And you get up close to it, and sure enough, it's just foliage. But if you don't have enough flowers in your landscape, I encourage you to come see us at Longwood. January is a great time of year. Orchids, all types of weird plants that don't bloom anywhere else in the nation. This is happening right now at Longwood. We're on our last week of Echinopsis, those blue poppies. We fly in from Alaska, and they bloom for all of 10 days. And then they die because they can't handle temperatures over 70 degrees. And on the right-hand side, Echium rarepreti, we grow those from seed. Takes us 18 months to grow those plants, and they bloom for 2 weeks, and then they die. So the truth is, you've got to visit Longwood on a regular basis. These types of things don't happen all year. They don't happen every day. They are the moment when you are visiting. And I cannot tell you when the best time is. Maybe you want to see cherries. Ours haven't even started yet. So if you have missed spring in your own garden, just head up north and our cherries will be peaking in the next 2 weeks. We have more than 300,000 bulbs we plant each and every year down our flower garden walk, whether it be tulips, narcissus, fritillaries, all those peak around tax day. So once you cry to the tax man, you can go to Longwood and enjoy some of that beauty that we planted for you. And of course, the month of May, I call it Invasive Plant Month. So look at what we do with our wisteria. You guys need to get on your game. You got plenty of wisteria out here. I want to start seeing some sculpted wisteria on the side of the road. And isn't it wonderful to visit a plant and be like, wow, that's a horrible weed at my house, but it's gorgeous here. And that's what we've done on the right-hand side with Paulownia. Paulownia tomentosa is a weed on the side of the road, but Mr. DuPont planted it, and we maintain it by chopping off all of the seed pods. So this is a pretty much do not try this at home landscape, but I love going places and seeing things I can't do, or I won't do, or I shouldn't do, but you can still enjoy it. Again, it's that guilty pleasure. Maybe you're going to be at Longwood on June the 14th. That's when our rose arbor blooms. It only blooms 1 week out of the year. That's the cultivar American Pillar, dating back probably 100 years, but a wonderful moment to catch the roses in flower. Or, of course, our summer season is filled with fireworks and fountains. So our fountain display has been recently renovated, and not only do we have incredible water shooting up hundreds of feet in the air, that water has flames on top of it now. So I want to remind you that this was the first performance fountain in the United States. And if people tell us this looks like Las Vegas, it's because Las Vegas came and got their ideas from us. Because we were here 100 years before Las Vegas was even a speck on the map. So miraculous to know that this fountain, built over 100 years ago, has been entertaining people for decades after decades. And how about that horticulture? Our wonderful water platters will be coming back this summer. They've been away for 3 years while we've been renovating, and these leaves stretch more than 6 feet. Moving indoors for the autumn season with our Chrysanthemum Festival, as we've mentioned, and of course, the most incredible time of year, the Christmas display. Each and every year, it completely changes. So if you have seen Christmas once at Longwood, you've got to come back, because it's always changing. So check out all these images on my website, and the travel log is going to show you where I've been and where I might be going. But more importantly, come and see me at Longwood Gardens. Thank you guys so much for having me today. Bottom icon on the right is Flickr. Sorry about that. Flickr is where I store all my 275,000 images. And you can access all those through my website. There are links to those as well. But any questions? Here's your chance. Stump the chump. You can ask anything you've been wondering about Longwood or horticulture, and John will answer the plant questions. I saw a hand back there. You weren't just waving your hair, were you? Oh, no, come on. Any questions at all? How do I get my blueberry pie so flaky? Thank you guys again.
Fantastic having Karl here. Hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks for the spring plant sale preview, and more importantly for the plant sale itself, which will be April 26th. But again, being a friend of Longwood Gardens, you get to pre-order, and if last spring was any indication, 25% of the plants were gone before we even opened up to the public. So it's a good thing to do, and it supports a wonderful place. Yeah, we will send the recording out.